Here are some solutions for the first collaborative problem set we worked on together. So the first question asks you to go to our StatCrunch group and look at the superhero data. And the question first asked, what does each row of the data set represents? So each row represents a different superhero. And what we see in all of the columns are features of the particular superhero. So for example, row 1 corresponds with the superhero called A-Bomb. The next question asked, how many categorical variables do we see in the data? So let's go through the variables and figure out if they're categorical or not. So name is definitely categorical. So is gender, eye color, race, hair color. Notice height is numerical. It's a number that tells how many centimeters tall a superhero is, so that's numerical. The publisher is categorical. So is the skin color and their alignment, whether they're a good superhero or a bad superhero. And weight is numerical. So if we count them up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, there were 8 categorical variables. All right. The next question asked you to read about a study. And so there was a link to a study in the BBC about ear tickling. And the headline was something like, can ear tickling thwart aging? And so the question asked you which features, if any, of the gold standard were present in the experiment. All right, so the first one, and this I copied directly from the section 1.4 notes about the gold standard. All right, so the first one is the sample size must be large. And if you looked at that article, this one was not satisfied. The sample size in this problem was only 29 individuals, so it was not a large sample size. Secondly, the assignment to a treatment and control group must be random and controlled by the researcher. And in this study, there was no control group. Instead, what they did is they took these 29 individuals and gave them all ear tickling. So there wasn't a group that got ear tickling and a group that did not get ear tickling, so there was no control group in the study. So that was also not present. So since there was no control group, there was no placebo, and the study also was not double-blind. So the researchers knew that all of the subjects in the study were getting ear tickled. And so the second question said, was the headline misleading? And so, yes, I think the headline is misleading because the headline said that ear tickling could thwart aging. And so basically, if you read the little summary of the study, it said, well, there were some positive effects, but what those positive effects means one could thwart aging, it seems like an overstatement. So the headline definitely was misleading. Okay, and then the last problem asked you to make 2 histograms of baseball salaries. So the first one is for the American League, and the second one is for the National League. And one thing I suggested that you want to do is use the same horizontal and vertical axes to make the comparisons easier. So when we talk about the shape of these distributions are definitely skewed. And remember, you don't have to be nervous about the direction of the skew. Just look down and look at the toes of your feet. So these graphs roughly resemble your right foot, not your left foot. So these graphs are both skewed right. And then there's a variety of ways you could compare the 2 distributions. In the American League, we see a higher frequency of lower paid players than in the National League, for example. That's one comparison we could make. And we could also compare the amount of variability in the 2 as well, although this is kind of challenging to do with a graph. When you do Chapter 3, we'll have numbers to use these to compare. So those are just some highlights from the first problem set. I hope you guys are off to a good start.